It's time for Movies with Mike Mayo. Our film critic Mike Mayo is serving up fresh reviews of the latest blockbusters, classics you might have forgotten, and listener requests. Movies with Mike Mayo is brought to you by Jersey Mike Subs on Wards Road, Lakeside Drive, and Timberlake Road in Lynchburg, with ingredients as fresh as Mike's takes on movies.
Really?
All right, Mike.
That's the music you chose? The Halloween music?
I'm going to bet Mike likes that music.
I do like that music, but it doesn't exactly make me want to, well...
Have a Jersey Mike sub? There you
Well, at least someone will have a sharp object to cut it with. No, I chose it because it's very distinctive, and Mike, has a flair for horror movies. But actually,
that's true. That's true,
and everybody would know what it is. I mean, even Mary knew what that was. But I kind of think I'll change it from like week to week, and just kind of do different ones. So
just find some good, music that is very easily identifiable from a particular movie that everybody knows.
Oh, well, look, I started out with a James Bond theme. So trust me, it'll all be pretty obvious stuff. But at any rate, there it is. So, Mike, we're going to talk about. We've got a couple of movies to talk about, including a listener request, and then we are going to. God knows, God help us, get back into the Snow White discussion here. But
let me before we even when we get to Snow White later, I want the listeners to excuse me for laughing so much because this whole thing is just so incredibly foolish that I cannot take it at all seriously, and I don't think anyone else should either.
Hear, hear. All right. Well, that is a good preview for the end part of the segment here. But let's play you. I've patched together some of the trailer for The Rifleman. It's a little long, but I think it'll set things up nicely.
The D-Day anniversary. I have to get to France.
I'd love for you to go, Artie, but we've a responsibility of care to you.
Sounds like you have me dead and buried already.
That's the thing about folks like us, Artie. We're all living with ghosts.
None of us can ever forget, but maybe we can forgive them. How in the name of God do you think you're going to get to Normandy? So you can't even find the bathroom in your own.
Oh, very funny.
So a little bit of the trailer there, a little Pierce Brosnan.
And that gives you a really good idea of what this movie is like. From the music that really kind of lays it on thick there. This is one of those movies that is, as they put it in the credits, inspired by a true story. And I think in this case, what we can take that to mean is there's a little bit of truth in here, but after that, we're kind of on our own. And the truth is that I believe it's for the 70th anniversary of the D-Day invasion, a veteran who was in a nursing home in Northern Ireland kind of flew the coop and got himself over to the ceremonies. And that's what this movie has too. They've moved it to the 75th anniversary, and Pierce Brosnan is in this Belfast nursing home. Things get a little more complicated at the beginning. He is dealing with a wife who is sicker than he is, and I don't want to give away too much. The basic thing here is, if you saw the movie Thelma last year with Jane Squibb, that really kind of got into the details of what it is like to be old and grouchy, then you will like this one too, because it gets that part of it really well. They don't do Brosnan any favors. Don't kind of doll him up to be the silver fox kind of guy. No, he's old. He's really old. 92 3/4, as he puts it. And then his trip from Belfast to Normandy, that is handled very nicely too. It's by different means. It's kind of the sort of road movie thing that you would expect to see in a movie like this. And he's got a really good supporting cast. You heard a couple of the voices there. One of them was the late John Amos. This is the last movie that he made, and he died before it was released. And Jürgen Prochnow, who's also done an awful lot of good character work, is in it too. in the end, I enjoyed it. I'm glad that our listener brought it to my attention because I probably wouldn't have seen it. It's had a very kind of checkered, poor release schedule. Never has been in theaters here. Played on a satellite service over in England and Europe, and really, has not been publicized at all here. But as I said, if you like Thelma, give this a look. It is on several different streaming services and DVD, available for rent or sale. And I enjoyed it. I would recommend it to our listeners who like this kind of movie. It's not the kind of movie that a really wide general audience would like, but I think a lot of listeners would, and they know who they are.
All right, and so then let's also talk about another Pierce Brosnan movie here, The Ghost Rider. And I don't have a clip for this one.
Yeah, this came out in 2010. It was directed by Roman Polanski. And this is a really solid Hitchcockian suspense movie. And oftentimes when you call a movie Hitchcockian, it's kind of either derivative or, you're thinking, it's not really that original. This case it is. The story involves Ewan McGregor as a ghostwriter who is brought in to polish the memoirs of an ex-British Prime Minister played by Pierce Brosnan. And the guy who was ghosting the book first died suspiciously. That's why Ewan McGregor is brought in. And I'm not going to tell you anything more about that. Couple of things, though, to mention first. This movie has a terrific beginning. First, there are no credits. We don't have the endless, chain of various, companies that put in production money that you have to get through before the action starts. No, it just opens bang on this really good opening scene that's on a car ferry. Again, not going to tell you anything more. The setting of the film, most of it is in the inside of this luxurious beach house that, is just the kind of thing that you would see in a fancy magazine or something. But then outside, it's really cold and windy, so it's a different kind of beach setting. Great supporting cast: Tom Wilkinson, Timothy Hutton, Eli Wallach, even briefly Jim Belushi in a really good role. But the best thing about this film is just the way it is structured. It is based on a novel by Robert Harris, the same guy who wrote the novel that Conclave was based on. And it has the same solid structure, that the way clues are kind of, handed out and in a very logical order that builds suspense all the way through. You're not exactly sure what's happening, but you know at each moment that you're going to learn more, and it's all going to come to a really good ending. This does. I was really taken by it. I saw it. I remember seeing it when it came out, 15 years ago. My gosh! But to look at it again, I was just knocked out. This is a really good movie, and I can't recommend it highly enough to any audience that really likes good suspense movie. Again, on several streaming services and DVD. Take a look at this one; you'll enjoy it.
All right, and now time for a little extra time here.
Time for the extra mail.
Yeah, I had to have the big plop sound effect. Sorry about that.
You laugh at this is just
So once again, given that Jersey Wax is our sponsor, you gotta roll with it here. So let's talk about Snow White. Made $40-some million. It was number one, although its opening box office was dwarfed by other Disney movies where they'd taken the animation to real life. They're a little grumpy about it, not at all happy. I know because I'm the only one who's making these puns. No one else has thought of it, so I figure I go with it. So, all right, Mike, you heard before you were talking before about the silliness of this, and I have to say that. That certainly struck me. I had no idea about the controversy over it until I read an article last week when this thing opened up.
Yeah, and this is Disney, more than any other studio, really just kind of mines and reminds, their catalog of what they've got. They remake just about everything, either, in animation or in the case of Snow White, which really kind of is what the whole studio is built on, the original 1937 Snow White. It was the first full-length animated film made buckets and buckets of cash for them, a huge gamble for the then fledgling studio. And now they have redone it as a live-action movie, but with computer-generated characters in it, too. And the original, of course, was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And Snow White, I mean, and apparently dwarves now is a pejorative term. You can't use it anymore. And I don't think they're even called dwarfs in the movie, or nothing is made of their size. I'm hazy on the details because I have not seen this, and I will not see it under any circumstances. I just think that doing this this just shows everything that is wrong with Hollywood today. Instead of doing something, if you want to do something like this, kind of go in a completely different direction. Just get away from Snow White altogether. Figure out another way to tell the story of a young woman clashing with an older woman. It's just, to me, that it just doesn't work at all. So I don't understand why they're doing it other than to make a whole lot of money. And there was a lot of other controversy too. The young woman who plays Snow White made pro-Palestinian remarks. Her co-star Gal Gadot as the queen is pro-Israeli, and a lot of that is made, and that should not even be mentioned in talking about a movie. But there it is.
Yeah, because that's the question I was going to ask you. Because as you say, Disney better than anybody at going back and finding old properties and recycling them and making a lot more money out of them, generation after generation. I mean, is this one you just have to give up on at this point? I mean, could you even try and say, hey, we're going to be true to the original story, please just bear with us, and we're going to hire real, short people to be the dwarves and all that, or do you just let it go?
I would say let it go myself, and I just don't see that there is the real audience out there for it. I mean, I guess they did all kinds of surveys, and people found that, oh, yes, Snow White is a beloved title, and if we can bring out anything with Snow White in the title, it will make us X million dollars. I just don't believe it. There are other stories to be told, but they're continuing. They've got, another Moana on,
right.
A live-action version of that coming in, something else. I mean, it is now their business model, and originality is the hardest thing to find in Hollywood these days. Even though, if we look back at the Oscars, from just a few weeks ago, the Anora, a fiercely original movie, takes home Best Picture, and Flo takes home Best Animated Picture, made for pennies in a Disney World, but again, completely original, and because of the Oscar, is becoming an even bigger hit now than it was before. It's going to wind up being a hugely profitable movie for the people involved, and again shows that if you're willing to take chances, even with something like animation, and do something different, if you do it well enough, people will come to see the movie.
All right, so Mike, talking about willing to take chances, what do you think? Would you, if you're giving Disney advice, they come to you with two choices. Should we do a live-action remake of Fantasia or Song of the South? What are you going for?
I'm going for Song of the South with...
Oh, you're in trouble now.
Samuel L. Jackson starring in Song of the South.
There it is. All right, we'll leave it right there. Mike, once again, if you want to see more of Mike's movie reviews, check out his books. Go to mike-mayo.com. Mike, thanks. We'll talk again next week.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Mike.